So,
Great.
uh, okay. Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, November 19th at 7 p.m. And this is a Zoom virtual meeting of the Lunenburg Capital Planning Committee. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The coordinates for the Zoom meeting and the dial-in are posted on the agenda, which is available at the Lunenburg Town website and at Town Hall and other posting locations. We are also using the AI transcriber tonight, which I think is a first for a capital planning meeting, but I was advised to do so given our challenges with minutes. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. I am calling the meeting to order and moving directly to public comment. Is there any public comment?
Just briefly, uh,
Please.
after last night's meeting, I just wanted to express my displeasure is maybe not the right word, but I'm not I'm not happy with rating the capital plan as a funding source. And I understand that these particular projects might not have gone forward, but it makes me wonder what we're doing here. We spend a lot of time debating these projects, deciding what is going to be done and not done, and then we lose control, and some of them are done, some of them are not done, and I just don't like it being used as a funding source.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. So I recognize that, and I want to be clear on something that I think may or may not be lost on folks in this room, but certainly is I think lost on the larger public here. Once we fund a capital plan at town meeting, we are authorized to only do the projects under that list. But and then if we are moving money from one project to another, or one one expenditure to another, we require town meeting authorization to do that. But to return excess, like one of those, to return excess or to decide not to go forward with the project and just return that funding back to free cash, that requires no authorization. So we actually often, so if you looked at those funding sources from the FY22 capital, there's two ways that you clean up old capital that's unexpended. So there were three projects in there that were unexpended, had remaining funds, and then projects that weren't going forward. You can reappropriate that money to another project, or you can close that money out to free cash. So to just simply close those projects out, though, does not require any decision of town meeting.
Right. And then it would just flow to free cash.
Exactly. So that's why, where those projects, if let's say it like this, if last night didn't happen, it would be very likely that those FY22 accounts would be closed out to free cash anyways. It just
Right.
would have to
Okay.
then flow through the free cash process.
Yep.
We also, and we can put a bow on this, but we do have quite a bit of recent precedent for transferring uh, transferring unexpended capital into various budgetary items. I'm getting a call from Chris Menard, so I'm going to take this for just a second.
Okay.
Hey, Chris. Oh, I'm not getting a notification. But let me look.
Is
Yeah.
he on the wrong link?
Yeah, you're on the wrong. We sent out a revised agenda earlier today with a different Zoom. So I'm not seeing you in a waiting room. But we are all on the thing.
You want to just tell them what the meeting ID is? I've got it right here if you need it.
I did, but I can give you the meeting ID. It's posted on the website too. Okay. All right, good. There he is. All right. We'll do a full panel. Hi, Chris. Sorry about the snafu.
No, that's okay.
Okay, we are in public comment. And we've just talked a little bit about allocating unexpended capital. I won't walk you through it. But it was a nice chat. Do you have any public comment?
No.
Okay, we will move on. Chair's report. I apologize to those of you who had to deal with my displeasure with the posting of, or lack of posting of last week's meeting. It's just a continuing theme, I think, for me for the fall of 25 and the overall difficulty in terms of scheduling both meeting space and Zooms for meetings, and the additional challenges of both town hall hours and availability, and obviously the challenges of holidays and the open meeting law. It's just one thing after another, and when you're trying to administer an ad hoc committee that does not meet regularly, we are out of sight and out of mind, I think, frequently for at least one office in town. And that is why we did not have a meeting last week. Looking forward, tonight's meeting with Mr. Ruth from the facilities department will represent the last of our scheduled presentations for capital requests. However, a couple of things have occurred over the course of the last several weeks since we began listening to these presentations, starting with the school department in mid-October. I was contacted by the superintendent almost immediately following that meeting. First with an apology that the quality of the overall presentation was not to her liking, and I gladly accepted her apology. But also with some concerns around the accuracy of some of the quotes and numbers that were being presented, as well as some additional topics that have been brought to her attention even in the ensuing days since they presented. I attended a meeting last Friday with a couple of school committee members and the superintendent and the facilities director and the finance director of the schools. And they informed me that on tonight's school committee agenda, they are seeking to rediscuss their capital plan request and may, in fact, be looking to come back to us with some revised requests. And that is obviously subject to the decision of the school committee this evening. Also, there has been at least one meeting, and there is another meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning pertaining to the track and field facility. And that is certainly going down the path that I had expected when we last discussed this several meetings ago, that hopefully it will come to some sort of town meeting action in the spring, but it is not able to be brought forth as part of this capital planning process that we are currently in. It's just too complex and too slow. And so what is likely to occur, I think, is that the school department will engage us and the town in the lead up to town meeting with potentially a separate proposal and a separate article. Again, we are very early stages still on that in terms of how that is likely to come to bear. I've kind of stuck to my characterization of this, which is I do think that it is in scope for capital planning, and the capital planning committee needs to be a part of this, but it doesn't necessarily need to rigidly follow our annual capital planning process. And that we need to have some flexibility based on the situation on the ground, which is a lot of personnel turnover, and a facility that is not holding up. So I just want to first inform everybody of that and kind of how that has gone down over the course of the last several weeks. With that in mind, what I would like to kind of propose and potentially just open it up to discussion is how we're going to come at this and maybe try to stick the landing for a recommendation in the month of December. Where my head currently is on this is that with next week being Thanksgiving week, I think a meeting is unlikely. Which, if we stick to what we have been doing over the course of the last several weeks when we have been able to meet, we have potentially available dates on the 3rd of December, the 10th of December, and the 17th of December. And if folks are not available, then please take a look at your calendars and let me know. But my hope is to kind of rally around those 3 dates. On the 3rd of December, I'm hoping to do a sort of roll-up of everything that's been requested, a discussion, an open discussion, and potential questions for the town manager that we may want to either submit in advance and she can get answers to, or submit then and she can follow up and get back to us asynchronously. But I think that there are probably some questions brewing about any or all of the proposals that we've gotten that we do need to take a moment to kind of pause and follow up on. And I think the 3rd would be a good date for that, as well as reserving time for the school department to come back if they need to do so. And then I will have at that point a draft of what I believe will be going into that meeting, a list of FY27 requests. And the idea would be that we would release those to the committee at that point, come back the following week, ideally sending me your priority lists a day in advance so that I can compile them and we can have a conversation about it on the 10th, and potentially approve, but also potentially not approve and hold the 17th as a potential cleanup date. So I wanted to just kind of float that out there today and see what people thought about that. Obviously, on some of those days or all of those days, we're going to have conversations about what we're going to do in January, February, March, and as the budget begins to unfold, to what degree we want to engage. Obviously, there'll be a likely additional school department item that we'll have to tend to. And then we also, had agreed as a committee that we were going to take a look at the out years and provide some guidance to the department heads on the out years as well, which we can certainly take the time to do that once our primary goal of this priorities list in December is complete. So with that, I will shut up for a minute and entertain any questions or comments. Madam Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I have a wrinkle or not, but we do not have a anticipated date of when we're going to have free cash certified to know what we're working with for available funds. And I don't know how much of the funding availability goes into the calculus of the prioritization of the list, or if it's just simply a prioritization.
Yeah, that's a great question, Madam Town Manager. From my perspective, our task is predominantly this prioritization list. We certainly want to be informed in terms of where the winds are blowing with respect to funding. And that has, by the way, that has at least been a trend in the past where the previous interim town manager and the previous, your predecessor, did kind of give us all right, this is how it's looking, this is how it's feeling. We might draw the line at $1 million or whatever the number was. But then obviously during the budget process, that line moves. And ultimately, it's your proposal and your plan. It's not the capital planning committee's plan at the end of the day. So I don't think that should slow us down in terms of sticking the landing for our charter requirement. But what it may do is cause us to need to be, in regular communication as those numbers become more apparent.
I use that as part of my prioritization.
Okay.
So, I mean, and honestly, like having this nailed down in December to me is fairly arbitrary because we don't really pick it up and deal with it until about March or April in the finance process anyway. So I'd rather come out with a good capital plan list that is thorough and everything else than rushing, through to get it in place in December. But, it's just, my opinion and, the chair of the finance committee's view of the world.
Look, I'm actually quite malleable on this one. But I do think we do need to be respectful of the charter, which does say that we need to report out by, effectively end of year. Just for everybody, and the town manager and I did this on the phone a few weeks ago, kind of looking at the charter. It's all stipulated in numbers of days, which is a little irritating. But suffice to say, what the requirements basically are from the charter is we report out in December. The town manager has a number of things that she needs to do in January, fiscal forecast, amongst other things. This should inform the fiscal forecast, or this whole process should inform the fiscal forecast. And then her capital plan, I believe, is due right around the 1st of February. So again, to your point, Chris, and I entirely agree, there's what the charter says and the way we actually do it, and how we are affected by the numbers as they become available during the budgeting process. Given all of the challenges that we have dealt with this year, I am not against pushing a recommendation into January. But
and I guess I don't even mind if it's like a preliminary list that we come out in December with, but I actually like the fact that we got back together during the budget cycle last year as things evolved. We weren't saying, hey, we did our job and we're done. Well,
Yep.
I don't think we were done. We had new information come to light and we dealt with it as things kind of emerged. So I think that was a good thing, not a
I
not a
totally
negative.
agree with you there. Yeah. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts from?
From my perspective, the amount available to fund it is a part of it, but I guess I look at it as in the best of all possible worlds, we'd fund the whole thing, and our job is kind of to prioritize everything. At some point, somebody's going to draw a line in the sand, and some things are going to be left off. I guess in the margins, when that happens, depending on where that line falls, it might cause me to do some minor rethinking of some of my priorities. But I think we should come up with a preliminary list in December. It's never set in stone. We can always vote to revisit it or change it, but at least we have a guidepost at that point.
Mr. Nuzolo, Mr. Brenner?
Ditto, effectively. Yes.
Yeah, same here. It sounds good to me.
Okay.
I think one other thing that we haven't necessarily considered in the past, but we should, is funding sources. So maybe DPW, we say, hey, this is necessary. It's kind of below the line, but we could use Chapter 90 funding for it. So maybe we need to put it above the line because it's an alternative funding source for something. So we've never kind of brought that dynamic into things, but I always wondered why we didn't. or borrowing, right? Maybe we should do borrowing on this.
Yeah.
As, so
Look, I completely agree, but I do think that obviously this is the town manager's show, and we need to advise her as these things I think come around, but it needs to be an open discussion. But I tend to agree. I also think, frankly, the finance committee has a lot to say in this as well, particularly when it comes to funding sources. So.
Yeah, I think that I am open to hearing as many perspectives and ideas as can be provided. I think, as I stated kind of before we started this meeting, Mr. Bowen last evening, had a great idea that was at least worthy of some consideration that hadn't even crossed my mind, right? So I think that hearing different perspectives and ideas, absolutely 100%, in my opinion, can be under the purview and charge and is helpful, frankly.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is that at a high level, at least looking out as far as mid-December, we all sort of agree to the work plan. I think we're probably not quite as hardlined as my initial plan is in terms of the finality of our recommendation. We will call it a initial recommendation subject to further information that we may want to consider in the month of January or something like that.
Yeah, the one wrinkle I have personally is that the 10th, I am not available. I'm not available that week.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we should plan that we still meet on the 10th, but our vote is on the 17th.
Yeah, and again, if Tanya can kind of cover for me, and maybe she becomes the next CPC, person or something. But and again, can't vote, I guess. But
Designate.
yeah,
but if you or assuming that we do get out a spreadsheet on the 3rd with a list that we can kind of prioritize from, maybe you and she can consult on that, and either of you could submit it to me the week of the 10th, regardless of where you are physically, Chris.
Yeah. It may be a picture with handwriting on it, if you can bear with me, but
I'm flexible. Yeah. It's all good. All good. I can take it over the phone, whatever. All right. All right. So I don't want to belabor this. I think we go with that plan for now.
Yep.
Until it changes. I will also do my darndest to get a physical meetings in place for December. Despite the challenge, I was very preferential to physical in-person meetings until this year, when it became extremely difficult for me personally. But I think it's still my general preference to try to meet in person. Okay. With that, is there any other commentary on this? If not, I will move to the town manager report if she has one. No report.
No report.
So then I will then go to Mr. Ruth.
All right.
I'm going to, we can work from my machine here, Mr. Ruth, if you want.
That's fine.
I tested this before we started, and I need to test it again because I took it all down while we were talking. How's that? Can you all see my screen?
I see a black screen. Oh, there we go.
All right. You can see it?
Yep.
Perfect. All right.
All right. Well, Peter, we can skip by the title here. That one's not all that important. I think unless you guys want me to run through all this, we can skip through these kind of just information slides here. I think you guys this group knows the drill at this point.
So we've got facilities, parks.
Yep.
And here's the overview.
Yep. So if you can go down to the next page, that should be the agenda here. I have it printed in front of me, but I'm missing some of the slides. All right, hang on a second. I have there we go. The Zoom was in the way. So this is just a summary of what's on the FY27 list. The two that are highlighted are, I was hoping to combine into the same project. I got pricing on the boilers, but I'm waiting on some numbers for the oil-fired unit heaters. I'll have to follow up with that. That's why those are highlighted. If you jump to the next slide once you're ready.
Yep, I'm there.
So this is my list of FY 28 through 29, and yep, that's on there. The only one I really want to point out on this one that will be a big discussion is that big 1.4 million at the bottom, and that's for re-roofing this section of TCP that is not being decommissioned. So I just wanted to make sure you guys saw that number and understood it was there, and because that's a big one.
Mr. Chairman, can I just jump in on that?
Sure.
So, just to put a little bit of a finer point on that, there was $325,000 or 300,000, Chris? Did I make up the 25? Yeah, 300,000. $300,000 in prior year capital to do the TCP roof. That was for the section that has been decommissioned. I had Chris kind of do a calculation to see if it made sense to take that $300,000 and move it to another section of TCP. And he can talk about more of that in detail at a later time if folks are interested, but it just was not going to make sense and would lead to a patchwork job on the roof. So that is a pretty big number for a very leaky building, but where we need to start making some decisions around the future of that building a little bit quicker, because that's a big number.
Indeed.
Also on this chart, I don't know why that TCP roof line is showing 40,000 in 2029. That must have just copied from the cell above.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
If you follow the TCP roof line across to F29, it says
Yep.
$40,000. It shouldn't say that.
Oh, okay, so that was just a errant.
Yeah, it must have
copy.
copied the line above it.
Okay. If I could just ask you on I think you shared me a SharePoint version. If you could just correct that, because we're going to transcribe this stuff. at some-
Yep, I will fix that one.
Okay. Okay. I think I got it here.
All right. If you jump to the next slide here, it's looking, these ones are just looking further out. And as I'm sure you guys know, these things tend to be moving targets. Some of these are ones that were before my time. We've done our best to clean up some of them that we didn't need, but the ones once we start getting this far out, some of it's a guess, to be honest. I have the library roof scheduled, but the library roof's holding up pretty good, so maybe we can push that out, that type of thing. So.
Okay.
You don't have anything in here anymore for Brooks, do you?
Nope. We pulled all that stuff out.
So it's totally out of the 10-year plan.
At this point, yeah. I mean, until
Okay.
someone comes up with a plan for the building, I couldn't justify spending any money there.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right thing.
Do we I'm looking at and I know it's way out, but the exterior doors on the town hall, does that have any sort of triggering for any kind of ADA? Because I know that we've got sort of a long-standing issue with the front door, the front entry of that building.
It probably will, and I believe it also has to go in front of, I think anything on the exterior of that building really would have to go in front of historic as well.
Or APDC.
Yeah, my understanding from our town clerk historian there is at one point a car crashed into the building and those front doors were replaced and made smaller. We had a hard time finding any hardware that would even fit the doors because they're a weird size. I think at the very least, though, we might have to add railings as well.
Okay. So this could be the beginning of a really big project if we.
It could be. Hopefully the building design committee has a solution long before we get there, and this one will come off of this list and be rolled into something else. But
okay,
we're doing our best.
All right.
All right, you can jump through the next one here. Go ahead and jump. This one we kind of already looked at, so if you want to skip past this one, we can get started on the first actual project here.
Why do you have the boiler in red?
That's the one I'm still waiting on the number for the. So we wanted to do the boiler, and there's 2 unit heaters on the fire side that are nonstop issues. So we wanted to roll all those together because they're all kind of connected to the same oil line system. But I'm waiting on the number for the oil fired heaters.
Okay.
Chris, how good are these estimates?
Most of them are pretty good. The only one that's, I would say the Parks one is using some verbal quotes, but without having the engineering known, I won't know how many yards of dirt we need. And then the boiler upgrades, I'm waiting on numbers. Other than that, they're all pretty tight.
Okay, and the field improvements would include new infields, gravel
Yeah.
or clay or whatever you're
We
going
have
to
a
do.
slide on it coming, right? We're gonna go in.
Oh, okay.
Chris, I guess what I'm just to kind of double down on Chris's question. When are you gonna have like numbers that we can rely on, particularly for the boiler?
That's a fantastic question. The guy who owed me the numbers was on vacation the last week and a half or so, and I'm on vacation next week. So it'll be sometime after that.
Okay. Like maybe the 3rd of December.
I will hopefully have some numbers by then. He was waiting on the manufacturer to get back to him, so it's 3 levels down the chain there to get the actual answer.
Okay. And then are these in any priority from your perspective?
From my perspective, the public safety roof is top priority. The public safety controls upgrade is very high. The boiler upgrades are significantly higher than the oil fired heaters. We could deal with those if we had to, but anyone that works in the public safety building can tell you the boilers have been a nightmare this year.
Okay.
Can I just speak to that a little bit? Because I think, well, you know what, Chris, if
We'll-
you're going to
we'll
talk,
get into the
if you're going to
slides.
talk
Yeah,
about the slide, that's what I was going to say.
It was basically a yes or no answer. Are these in priority order or not? But we do need a priority list from you as well, Chris. If you could.
Yep, I can do that.
The
Put
follow
that
up,
together
just
for you.
kind of give it to us in
Yep.
order.
Can I ask just one other question, and maybe you handled this before, but are you putting contingency on every bid as well? Are you putting like?
Yeah, I have
I don't know if
10%.
this is a Chris or Jen question, but
I have 10% on all these because some of the numbers are, I took cost per square foot from last year type of thing, but I typically put 10% on everything just in case.
okay. And Jen, is that pretty, or maybe Peter, is that been consistent across all the?
It actually has not been, and we probably want to go back and double check with all of the department heads as to whether there's contingency included and whether we collectively believe a particular thing needs a contingency or not. For example, the vehicle that we have a hard quote on, it is what it is, but a major infrastructure project, maybe not. I actually got a very similar question from a school committee member tonight. And I told her that start with the number and then we can have a conversation about grossing it up or whatever, but let's get an accurate quote first.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And Peter, I believe I sent over to you my backup sheets.
Yeah,
that
I've got them.
call
And
all of it out right in there.
they were distributed to the committee. Yeah. Okay. Let's go.
All right. So this one's pretty much top of my list at this point. This is replacing the roof in its entirety for the public safety building. That includes the shingle roof that covers, I guess, the fire offices and the entire police side, and then as well as the rubber roof over the fire garage. And there's a small like carport out back that's rubber roof over the police cruisers as well. All the roofing is original to the building at this point. This year we've had quite a few leaks once the drought ended and the rain started again. You can see from the pictures here that those are shingles that are in the sun and not getting mold. They're just falling apart. So it's definitely time there. The rubber roof hasn't been leaking bad yet, but when I go up there, if you rub your hands on the rubber, your hands turn black instantly, which is the telltale sign that the oils have come out of the rubber and it's starting to crack and it's ready to fail. Pricing for this one, I put together using the cost per square foot numbers from Town Hall roof and the DPW roof that we did last year. And like I had mentioned, I stuck a contingency on that just for escalation and any possible misses there.
Okay. Stinks that we're replacing a roof on a 20-year-old building.
You know,
I'd hope we don't get to the TCP plan where the 20-year roof is at 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I-
as these roofs leak in the finished spaces, every drip costs us the patch money, and then the repairs inside and can lead to mold and all kinds of stuff.
So this is one of those areas that I know exactly enough to be pretty dangerous, and I recognize that. But I thought it was common for the architectural shingles to have. No, I'm not questioning. I can see the pictures. I get the need. But I just thought architectural shingles had closer to a 30-year life expectancy normally.
So when you buy the shingles, it all really depends on how you specify it. There's 20s, 25s, and 30s.
Okay.
And it really goes by the weight of the shingle. What I've been doing with at least Town Hall and Senior Center, the two roofs I've done so far, is I'm specifying 100% Grace Ice and Water Shield. And with that, I'll be long dead before these roofs leak again. The shingles could all blow off and they still won't leak. So, and it's not a huge cost increase to do that. So it seems to be working well.
Love it. Like I said, not questioning the need in this case. I was just surprised going, those are architectural. I thought they were longer. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. If you don't specify which ones you want, and 20 years ago, the 30s weren't as common. So,
Okay.
Chris, can you explain what that 100% ice and water shield coverage is? Is that a layer that goes under them, or is
yeah.
that
So it's like a peel and stick rubber, and it's typically specified for 3 to 6 feet up on the eaves, depending on the pitch, because that's where you get your ice dams. It's one of those things that there's a lot of people make the product. The one I specify is the best out there, and I could strip all the shingles off this thing tomorrow, put Grace Ice and Water Shield on it, and no shingles, and it wouldn't leak all winter. It's basically a rubberized coating over the whole roof. Then you put the shingles over it. Self seals around the nails. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Anyone else?
Nope.
All right. Moving on.
All right, on to the next one here. So I had this one kind of as a medium priority, but in the grand scheme of things, you guys may kick it down a little bit. But I want to say a year or so ago, we replaced all the carpets in the public safety building, but that was, offices, bunk rooms. We didn't touch any of the hallways. So all the hallways have VCT, and as you can see from the pictures here, it's seen better days.
I mean, is that pretty much across all of the floors, or is that just like two good pictures?
So that's on the second floor, which is the worst section of it. Some of that may have to do with the fact that it was, over a wood floor, which has a little more movement than the concrete floor downstairs. But there's quite a few spots downstairs where you can see the tiles are starting to pop. It's harder to see in pictures, but every time you have a leak and the water gets under there, they start loosening up and curling up at the edges. And we did this year increase the amount of we have Cintas that does the monthly walk-off mats to try to prolong this a little bit. So, through the winter, they're not dragging as much salt and mud and stuff in.
So we have mats over these in the winter? Is that
Just at the door, at the main entrances.
oh,
So,
okay, not down the runs. Okay.
yeah. And this pricing came from cost per square foot numbers from when we did the carpet. Plus, that was a year or so ago, so we put the 10% on it. But luckily in the hallways, there's less furniture to move. We have some washing machines and tables and stuff downstairs, but it's a little less intensive than moving everyone's desk to put carpet under it.
Okay.
All right, this one is for the head end controller at the public safety building. Um, this controls the heat and AC in the entire building. And anyone that that works in there will tell you it's always a problem. The system that's there right now is original to the building. We're constantly having to get back into it to maintain it. We had all kinds of boiler issues, and it took a while to figure out if it was the controls not talking to them correctly and all that type of stuff. The system's also proprietary, and parts are becoming very hard to come by. But this one would be replacing the head end unit only, the wiring and the controls on each unit. We can kind of repair as we go if things break.
I never ever thought I'd ever even talk about these kinds of units until I got into volunteering for committees, and we ran into an issue with an electrical panel. I want to say at the primary school. No, it was Turkey Hill a few years ago. It was a fire panel, actually. And what I came to learn was that all of these, industrial and commercial building systems have, a sort of forced obsolescence period of about 5 to 10 years. And the manufacturer stops making the old thing, the parts become hard to come by, and you got to buy the new thing, and it's really expensive. What happened with the Turkey Hill panel that we bought was we actually were able to find a new old stock panel on eBay for an extremely reasonable price, and we're just able to do a 1-for-1 swap and kind of get on with life. And I guess that's the question that I'm kind of leading into here is, would we be better off to keep our eyes peeled for a replacement of the old tech rather than upgrading to the new tech, at least when it comes to something like a panel?
For this one, the fact that it's a proprietary is really the biggest issue because it's panels that aren't, you can kind of mix and match parts. As you see these, especially with the school, if you ever see the word simplex, run and hide because it means you can only use Johnson controls to work on it, and the parts are a pain in the ass, and you can't get them from anybody else. And for whatever reason, lots and lots of public buildings specified simplex stuff between fire alarms and this, and they're always a nightmare because you're locked into one contractor, and there's nothing you can do.
Okay, and when you say a proprietary system, you mean this thing was pieced together by the contractor who put in the system?
Oh no, Simplex supplied all the parts, but you can't go and put a Honeywell part on this. It all has to come from Simplex. Like fire alarm panels, for instance, Simplex makes one. It's all their parts only. When Honeywell makes it, you can mix and match
Got it.
all different kinds of stuff, and I just anytime there's anything proprietary, I shy away from it very much because it locks you into their program, and that's it.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Chris, do we have these, we probably have these across all our buildings. Do we have these kind of all coded into the plan as to when they're all going to have to be replaced?
So at the moment, the only buildings that have, well, I guess there's 3 of them. So the public safety building and the library both have these. Last year we put some money on for the design for the library because that one's a more complicated system. And the other one that has a control system on it right now, surprisingly, is TCP, but nobody can even communicate with the computer system because it is running off of either Windows 2000 or Windows XP, and nobody has a laptop left that can actually talk to it.
I guess my question though is for all those things, are they coded into the 10-year plan, the 20-year plan, whatever? Like, do we know when we're going to have to do these?
Yeah, I have them for these 2 buildings, and the TCP one we may have to do just because we can't control the boiler over there. The rest of the buildings don't have it. It's really just thermostats. So, we have unit replacement in there, but it's all local control. If we were to do a whole building renovation, we would upgrade to this, but
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
We're on the boiler. Chris, you're muted.
yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. So the boilers. For whatever reason, when the building was built, they decided oil was a great idea, which is a pain to put it nicely. So the current system, these boilers are 20 years old. We had a time over the summer where we had to stop by every morning and restart the boilers manually because we couldn't get them to stay on, which the firefighters really love when they come back from a call and jump into a cold shower. This system runs the heat and the hot water for the building. So the estimate you see here at the 115 is replacing both boilers in their entirety. We had talked about replacing only the burners as an option, because boilers are typically just a big hunk of cast iron. That being said, digging through some old files from my predecessors, I found out that the burners have already been replaced in 2008, and they're failing again. It is an option to replace just the burners again for significantly less money, but that's going to, we could do all that work and have a crack in the boiler we didn't know about and then still have to do this. Mixed in with this, let me just double check so I don't speak out of turn. We also have the new oil transfer pumps, which you can kind of see next to the blue bin there. There is a 3,000 gallon tank underground, and they pump up out of it, and you can't really see it in the picture, but there's actually a tray under that full of diesel fuel because they leak. So it would include replacing all that pump system as well.
Okay, here's where I was starting to jump in prematurely earlier, Mr. Chairman. So I hear that Chris has said that firefighters have come home and to the barn and had to take a cold shower. I want to put a little finer point on that. So from a management perspective, I have had more than one grievance surrounding this issue, because this isn't a matter of somebody was out and they got sweaty at a workout and they wanted to take a warm shower. They need these showers as part of their job to decontaminate after they've been on certain types of calls. So this is a safety issue for the staff.
Chris, can you talk a little bit more about the burner versus the boiler?
Yeah, so the burner is
just, again, I'm a little flabbergasted, not only from the price tag, but my residential boiler, which is, I think, pushing 20 years old, and I have it serviced annually. The guy comes every year and says, yeah, you're going to need a new burner at some point, but that boiler is going to last you probably your lifetime, right? So you say, well, it could have a crack. Well, my head could have a crack, but I'm having a hard time here with going with the higher end approach just because of its age. Do we know that thing is really that tired, or are we just like, oh, if we're going to do it, we might as well do the whole thing?
So I don't know if you can see in the picture, there's actually two of these boilers. It's part of the reason the cost is so high. There's a lead lag system on it. I started out thinking, let's just do the burners because it's significantly cheaper. The recommendations of our contractor is to not do it that way, and I understand contractors obviously want to make some more money. But that being said, I would hate to spend money, do it, and then have a boiler go back down. As it is, the work on this is going to be difficult because it's a 24/7 building. It's not like we can shut it down. That being said, if this was a natural gas boiler, I would probably not be recommending it because they burn so much cleaner. But where this thing's been running off of oil for all these years, we had an issue last year where we got some biofuel dumped into the tank, and it caused a bunch of sludge to break loose. Like, we were pulling snakes out of the lines. So what's actually inside these things is anyone's guess. My recommendation is let's put 2 new boilers and be done with it and not worry about it where it's life safety. You know, this isn't the library that can just close. This is our police and fire departments that need to operate no matter what. So we did look at it, but my recommendation is replace them in full.
Can you explain a little bit more about, you mentioned a diesel fuel trailer and the pump system. You opened with you wouldn't put in oil. Can you explain a little bit more there?
So my understanding when they built this building, and I don't know anyone who was on that committee, but they were told it was going to be 40 grand to extend the gas line to the building. And someone thought that was too much money 20 years ago and decided to put an oil tank in. And heating a commercial building off of oil is the only time I've ever seen a building this size off of oil. It's total insanity to me.
I
You know,
guess,
This
I guess what I'm asking here is why are we putting another oil burner? Like what? You just
there
telling me
is
we should do it right, but you're kind of telling me that we're not going to do it right.
there isn't really an option to change it. I had talked to the chiefs about the potential of switching to a propane system in lieu of this. And apparently there are concerns of terrorism attacks of having a propane tank outside the building because it's an easy target.
I get a flyer every other month from Unitil trying to get me to convert to natural gas.
Natural gas is not available in front of the public safety building.
It isn't?
Does not run by that section. If it did, that would be a very different conversation because then it would just be a tap off and up the driveway.
How far is
Anything would
it?
be I'd have to double check. It's in one of the weird sections of town that goes from Unitil to National Grid. So that's kind of why it never got extended there because it's at the edge of each of their territories.
We did so much wrong on this project. It's unbelievable. Okay.
Kind of par for the course at that era.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say these 20-year-old municipal buildings, this is the 2 buildings, same story that I had in my last town that are of this age.
But even the property, I mean, Mr. Bowen knows he was intimately involved. Like it just, he and I fought about this 25 years ago. I'm not going to belabor it, but I mean, oh my God. Anyway.
There's also a chance that this was built on some sort of Native American burial ground because we're at the point now where every light pole is individually grounded because it was getting struck by lightning so often.
All right. We won't waste any. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this one?
I'm good.
Possible one of our public safety people is a budding superhero.
That would fit. Okay.
All right. This one is back to everyone's favorite building. So this request is to begin the process of removing the asbestos from the decommissioned section of TCP. We went through, did a takeoff based off of the asbestos report, and it's basically all of the flooring in this decommissioned section, all of the hard ceilings, which is the bathrooms for the most part, and all of the pipe insulation. This is a fairly real number. I stuck an additional 50,000 on it because the number I got was for removing all of the asbestos, but some of the pipes are in concealed spaces, so there will be additional demolition for them to get to that. That's not necessarily asbestos. The main thing with this is, I know money's obviously tight, but this has to get done no matter what. There is no way around it. Even if the building burned to the ground, we still have to pay to remove all of this stuff. So it's one of those, this is what it costs today. It's going to cost more next year.
Chris, as you remove ceiling and tiles and start punching holes and stuff, you're not going to fix any of it, right? It's just going to be left as.
Yeah, all these holes are in the area that are decommissioned. The picture on the left there is one of the boys' bathrooms that we had to have that section of ceiling abated just to get to the pipes to shut the heat and the sprinkler down. The picture on the right there is one of the janitor's closets where it's exposed. But the as we're discovering decommissioning this, there's pipes run every which way in this building, and the plans are terrible because they're not as built, and it's a mess.
I'm beginning to think of TC Passios the same way that I know Mr. Menard thinks of the Brooks House.
Oh, yeah, both. I agree.
And
Yes.
and sitting here today, this would be my last priority item.
Oh, it has to get done though.
Well, I understand that. However, I think it can be done as part of a new building project or a project to do whatever it is we're going to do on that property once we decide to do it. But we're not resolved there. And until we're resolved, I feel like we're going, I don't know. Relative to all of the other things that are being asked for, in my mind, it's like this needs to get packaged along with what are we doing on that property. The school committee is meeting tonight. One of the things on their agenda is to discuss the future of Turkey Hill and whether it's a, minor renovation, major renovation, or replacement. And I continue to believe like that property is an option. So I just, to me, yeah, I know we're gonna have to remove asbestos. I totally get that, but I feel like it could be rolled into another project that doesn't draw on our limited available capital funds.
I guess my question would be if we kick the can on everything in this town as we saw last night. I hate it. However, my question is now going to be, can we kick the can on this one in the context of we don't know what the building's going to. So I guess, yeah, I want to know, is this a current safety issue or is this something that has to get done and we know that anything tied to construction is going up faster than inflation?
I think to that point, is it a safety issue right now? No, because this is the decommissioned portion of the building that the only people that will have any access are me and my facilities guys. My mentality was it's just going to keep getting more expensive. And the other thought I had was, say we do all this abatement, kind of gut the back half of the building. When something happens at Turkey Hill, now we've got 25,000 square feet of enclosed space. Maybe we put temporary classrooms, but maybe we don't. It's just people seeing a large empty space sometimes gives more ideas. But again, it's not a safety issue. It's just if we kick the can down the road, it's going to cost us more tax dollars.
Chris, do you know what the cost of asbestos removal is over time? How much, does it go up more than inflation?
That's a good question. It definitely follows any of the labor costs and prevailing wage because the bulk of it is labor. And then there's the trucking and the transport costs. Typically it's going to a landfill in Ohio. So, as fuel goes up, trucking goes up. But I don't have the accurate data as how much has gone up over the years.
Yeah, and again, I should have prefaced my comments. This is no disrespect to you, Mr. Ruth. You're doing your job. Like you're doing the right thing by bringing this to us. This is a town of Lunenburg problem where we got to get our collective crap together and figure this out. But I just, in my mind, there's other ways to do this that are.
No, I'm with you. I'm also a resident. So anytime I see something that's going to cost more, that's where my focus is. So but I understand what everyone else is up against. I'm working with the building design committee as well. So I know there's a lot of balls in the air trying to figure out what to do here.
Okay.
It's tangential to this, but Mr. Beardmore, since you brought it up, I want to ask the group, and I guess this is, I don't mean it to be a loaded question. I think it ends up a loaded question regardless. Some things are just explosive that way. This is like the umpteenth time I've heard, well, the school committee is having a serious conversation right now about the future of Turkey Hill and everything else. I don't need a big in-depth, but do we have reason to believe this time is different? Because on this topic, and Lunenburg as a whole is real good at talking about buildings and then doing nothing. and not even coming to a conclusion
Well,
necessarily.
yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about this, but let me offer you one observation.
Please.
As we've been having this conversation over the course of the last few years, one of the things that was said many, many times in public meetings, mostly by Carol Archambault, was that the schools are going to wait their turn until they're not. And that tipping point was last spring when we decided that we aren't doing the plan that came forth from the municipal building committee. And the opinion of the old school committee, and I think it's shared by the newer members of the school committee, but I'm not authorized to speak on their behalf, is that now we got to get the ball rolling. And the important meetings that happened before were constructive. We spent money to do an assessment of that building. We know a lot more about that building than we did a year ago, because we had a full assessment that included ADA and all of the systems in the building and the whole 9 yards. We have a reasonable cost assessment in terms of what does it cost to bring it to current code and those kinds of things. So there was a lot of missing information, as well as this tipping point that has occurred over the course of the last several months. So, but the school committee has never, come to a conclusion around, do we do, small upgrades to the building? Do we do a major renovation? That means basically taking the building out of service for a couple of years while we do it, or at least a year, or do we do a full-scale replacement of the building? The school committee's never, weighed in with a collective opinion on that. And that is on their goals for this year now, is to come to a resolution on that, to engage the MSBA, to figure out exactly what all of the various ramifications and permutations are.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that perspective.
I guess my opinion on TCP is I don't see a future for it. That doesn't involve it being leveled to the ground. So I would start that process along with Brooks House.
I think we have the same view of where the building is going, which is needs to meet a bulldozer. But I think there's a lot of work to do before we get there.
Maybe there was a missed opportunity last night for some more straw polling. I kind of say that half joking, but half serious. Like, I think we hear about some of these buildings and we hear sometimes some really vocal advocates, but and we think that might be the sentiment, right? But perhaps it's not. Perhaps there is a different appetite if we were to poll kind of more widely.
Yeah.
I hear that, but part of the issue I think is the variable attendance at town meeting, not just in terms of raw numbers, but in terms of the people who show up are so the specific individuals who show up are so influenced by whatever the topic du jour is.
No, I was using that as an example, but more like truthfully to poll the town more. Yeah,
I have a different point of view on this, which is I actually, because we have recent evidence over the last 10 years to show you that a straw poll in one meeting has nothing to do with the outcome in the next meeting. What I can tell you, what I have seen here, and it's credit to Mr. Bowen, who I just shared a little bit of history. The reason why we were able to build 3 buildings in Lunenburg in a fairly short period of time came down to one word: leadership. The right group of people got together and they decided they wanted it and they're going to put in the effort, and they campaigned the hell out of it and made it happen. And by the way, it had nothing to do with me. I opposed most of it at the time. But Mr. Bowen and Mr. Cronin and a number of others who were involved made it happen. And that's what it takes. And it has little to do with the current opinions of anybody. It has to do with the leadership to actually move something.
I think we got this asbestos.
I think so too.
Yeah.
All right, Mr.
All right. On to the last one here. So this one is for regrading and reseeding of Fitzgerald Field. As you can see in the picture here, there's some patchy grass. I don't remember when I sent the drone up for this picture, but it was off season. The main issue on this field is the right-hand field and that right-hand dugout. From the time the snow melts till sometime May, June, that section's almost underwater. There's a stream that runs through the trees there. It's really not usable. Over the years, that whole side slopes over the edge, and it's really not even level for playing baseball at this point. I mean, it is Little League, not the pros, so it's not the end of the world. But in this one, the thought was roughly 300 to 400 yards of material to bring in to raise the right-hand side up to kind of control the water and keep it in the stream. And then the rest of it would be, fill the high and low spots and, reseed it. We have some money in here for engineering to make sure the grades work and it drains. There's some money for the initial year fertilizer program to get it running. And there's some money in there for some fencing upgrades. And the fencing upgrades we're trying to combine two parks things here of a little bit of fencing here and some fencing repairs at the town beach. The town beach there's a section where it doesn't reach the ground and kids have been climbing underneath into traffic. And at Fitzgerald Field, the fencing issues are more related to snowmobiles cutting across and doing damage if it snows.
I could yell downstairs, but did Parks weigh in on this one? Are they in agreement?
Yeah, this is what they had sent over to me.
Okay.
They have some other ones that they asked me to keep on the list for future, but nothing that they were looking to do this year.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry. So at one point we were encroaching on the neighbor's land. Is that going to be fixed, or has that been fixed as part of this?
It's fixing that is not part of it. It's that dugout that floods and the backstop is right up against the edge of the property there. I think anything we did there of that kind of level, there's another wrinkle that gets thrown in here is this is technically not a parks property, it's a conservation property.
Yeah.
So it adds a couple more layers to getting stuff done. I think at the end of the day, the right answer, and we'd obviously have to talk to town council, maybe what we just did with an easement for town hall type of deal. Or worst case, we have to shift it all over. But
are we really not using either of these fields in the spring?
the field on the left you can use more, but it depends on the rain of the year. There's been years where it's been unusable, and there's been years where, mid-end of May, it starts drying out, but that one dugout, we had to add a couple yards of crushed stone into that dugout because there was 4 inches of standing water in it. And, the field was okay, but the dugout was still underwater type of thing.
Yeah, the numbers in baseball are a lot lower than probably when Ray, and certainly when, I don't know if you played baseball, but when my own kids played baseball, so the fields are not as utilized as they once were.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of what I was getting to, is I'd like to understand what the necessity, because I'm all for spending, like, if it's something that's going to get used, $59,000 relative to some of these other projects that are, because people, in my opinion, sometimes like their toys a little bit too much. I think that this is a great project, right? If it's going to get used. And I think that that's where I'm a little bit hung up here is, if you're telling me they're not being used, and I haven't heard a single complaint from youth baseball beyond, T-ball, which is being played up at the old primary school location, but I haven't heard about field availability. Like, do we need these, I guess is what I'm getting to.
That's a very loaded question that I'd prefer not to walk into the shredder again, because last time I said anything about what Little League used, I was attacked on that one. I can ask the question, and the answer they're going to give us is yes, we need it. We have scheduling issues. We have the fields. I just don't want to let them the longer we leave it, the more it costs us to bring it back at some point. The fields, once they dry out, they get used throughout their whole season. We also let there's a Special Olympics flag football team that uses it later in the season for practices, but the water at that point is typically not an issue.
My
I think ultimately those questions are, the Parks Commission's purview on prioritization. But that's why I asked if they had weighed in on it. I hadn't asked them if they had.
my information is a little out of date because I've been out of Little League for a long time now, but I can't speak to the baseball side because I had two girls who I coached on the softball side. And at the time, fields were at a premium. I don't know what the numbers are, how the numbers compare, but at the time there weren't enough softball fields to accommodate everybody because the Lake Lodge closed and we lost a practice field. I don't know about the baseball side though.
I think it might be helpful to get some commentary from the Parks Commission on this, as well as the leadership of the Youth Baseball Association.
Yeah.
One of them is my neighbor, so I can probably just go knock on his door and ask him. But I'm just curious here.
I have to say,
I know youth baseball does not even share their enrollment numbers with the Parks Commission. So youth baseball is very hard to work with.
I'm kind of the opinion they can become easy to work with, or I don't. When I say I don't care, I don't mean that like, oh, whatever, but if they don't want to give me data, that doesn't lead me to believe it's good numbers.
Yeah. I mean, my take on this is I want to be a yes on this one, right? Like
I do too.
But I need to know that it's actually needed.
Oh, Chris, by the way, I want to call you out and say thank you because I started saying regrading, um, erosion, and I got a little panicky about the feasibility of this. And then you included the magic words, and there's money here for some engineering, and my stormwater heart sang. So thank you.
Hey, one other comment on this, and I'm not going to die on this hill either, but the fact that this proposal includes fencing repairs on the town beach, which I also absolutely want to solve, but to the letter of the law, that strikes of bundling on this one.
Mm.
I mean, the town beach portion of the fencing was a much smaller number than I anticipated once it actually came in. So, worst case, I could pull out that $3,400 of that part. So
I think by our rules, that should be done by your budget.
well, if my budget goes through what I asked for, I can definitely get it done. Without the increase in my parks budget, there is a 0% chance of it getting fixed.
And out of curiosity, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but where is the problem with the fencing in the town beach?
So from basically the town beach building down about 75 feet, there's a section where the fence doesn't actually touch the ground, and there's about a 1 foot gap there. And everyone parks along the road. And I saw one time a kid went under the fence and got past the cars and almost got clipped because nobody can see you. And I've seen other times when the kids try and crawl underneath, but their parents catch them quicker. We had a fencing contractor come out and look at it, and the best thought we came up with was remove the existing fencing, cut the poles down in that section, and lower it. Why they didn't do that, I don't know, because the rest of it follows the grade. But why they left that section up, I really don't know.
Not for nothing, but can you raise the ground?
We looked into that, and the best option I could come up with was some bigger like riprap, 3-4 inch minus stuff. But I have kids, and something about putting a whole pile of rocks along the beach just didn't seem wise.
I hear you. Okay. All right, well, if you could, maybe have a conversation with the town manager, decide what you want to do on that, but I do think we need some, additional commentary on this, or.
I mean, fields and green space is always good, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't argue with that.
And this is I'm not as familiar with the town fields because my boys aren't square or diamond shaped field sports kids. But this looks this is an area of town that doesn't have much else in the way of parks or fields.
No.
Yeah, this one's kind of out there from the
I mean,
center at least.
it's servicing a different client, a different group than some of our other parks are, and I think that's always relevant to know too, that we're hitting different kids.
I will say too, as far as dealing with the youth baseball folks, I know they do have a new field coordinator who's going to be working on all this, and it's someone I've known and worked with in the past, and hopefully that relationship will be able to improve a little bit based off that.
Yeah, it would also be nice to have a rec director to be on the other side of that call.
Oh, that'd be fantastic to have a rec director. Do you know anyone?
That's going to be very unlikely based on what we're seeing, unfortunately.
I've tried talking the chair of the Parks Commission into it, but she wasn't having it.
You just got to give 6 or 8 weeks vacation.
Okay. Anything else here?
Nope, that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments for Mr. Ruth?
I guess the only question again to the 10-year plan is you feel it's pretty robust. It's fairly inclusive. Like just as an example, you had like 3 projects that were XXX, which means they were identified this year and in this year's plan, which means we missed it in the 10-year plan, last year.
So some of those there hasn't been a whole lot added here. I can send you guys a copy of my actual working sheet that I use because it may be easier to read. The numbers were kind of some of the numbers in there never matched up when we were using the not the OpenGov, whatever it was, the ClearGov system. So some of the numbers were just I put an X if I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
You did mention that the parks, besides Reservoir, did have something in the out years that they wanted to do with the other parks. I just don't remember. Is that in your 10-year plan?
There's not really a number there yet because I don't know what we're doing. So I just have it as a placeholder. But the 2 projects I know they want to work on besides Marshall are some redesign over at McNally to make it more accessible, as well as Parks controls a pretty good sized parcel on Northfield Road by the golf course that I believe the plan is to get some soccer fields in at some point because those are also desperately needed in town.
If I can on that latter project, one thing that I had advocated with Heather for when she was cutting deals with Bright Leaf or Green Leaf or whatever that company that was going to go in next to Hannaford there
Right.
is, Bright Farms, was to try to get access up into that park from Route 2A rather than having to get access from Northfield Road itself. Because if that became a pretty busy park, bringing it down in through that neighborhood, might be difficult, right? The same problems we were thinking we might have with the big development up. Oh, I guess that's a road up from that. But so as you're potentially cutting deals in that area, think about access up into that, that park space that we acquired this in the part of that Saliba deal. So I guess Jen, if you can kind of think about that and maybe Caesar from the select board's perspective, just have that in your mind that
Matt
may be
too.
something that
Mhm.
what's that? Or
Well,
Matt, yeah, sorry, yeah.
because Matt knows when stuff is coming. I wish somebody was coming with some deals right now, but Matt might know a little more of folks. Yeah.
I do support keeping traffic off of Northfield Road, though. I can tell you that.
I mean, to my knowledge, that area is still under deal with another business that it's kind of in limbo. And we'll see what happens if and when they come back. Or if
I know there
there's
was a thought of connecting it to some conservation land, but I think priority wise, connecting it to that park, if that park were to become where we put rectangular fields, that would get much more use than the conservation access.
Definitely. And it's really needed. Like, that would be good if we could figure that out. Okay. Anything else for Mr. Ruth? All right. Thank you, Mr. Ruth. I appreciate it. If you
Thanks,
could be on
guys.
email with the couple of follow-up items, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
Chris.
We do not have minutes to approve. Madam Town Manager, I had a note to call you and ask you about a minutes clerk.
You
'Cause
need a
I
minute
thought-
clerk?
Well, I've been copying Danielle and haven't heard anything, and I don't know
Oh.
if she's kind of fallen off, but
Okay.
we've got the last few meetings we haven't received any minutes for, so,
Okay, so, all right. Let me connect with Danielle.
okay. And then hopefully we can get some together. I can certainly help if need be, but, and I can tell you, when I go back to my email, I can tell you how far we go back. We still have some outstanding ones to approve, but we could do it as one big package, so. Okay, we've discussed future meetings as part of my report, so we don't need to belabor that. Is there any public comment? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
We have a motion by Mr. Menard, a second by Mr. Brenner. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Mr. Nuzolo,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Menard,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Thank you all. It's been a fun evening with you.
All right.
In a couple weeks. Happy
Good
Thanksgiving.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Jen, she's gone.